The town was small enough that everyone knew when the bakery ovens were lit, because the smell of warm bread would drift through the narrow streets and sneak beneath windows. By day, the square was lively with chatter, the clink of market stalls, and the ringing bell of the clock tower. But once night came, everything softened. Shutters closed gently, lanterns flickered low, and the cobblestones held only the faint sound of footsteps returning home. On one such street, curved and a little uneven, stood a shop with a sign that read Rowan's Booksellers. The paint was faded, and the lettering had chipped over years of weather, but it still carried a certain charm. Most people passed it by during the day, barely noticing the dusty windows. It seemed like any other old shop that had outlived its business. But if someone lingered just a little past midnight, they might notice something unusual. A warmth glowed faintly from the cracks in the shutters, as if a fire burned low inside. The door, though locked, seemed to breathe with a hush that matched the rhythm of the night. And sometimes, if the street was very still, there came a sound from within, the delicate rustle of pages turning when no one was there to turn them. The townsfolk whispered stories. Some said the shop was haunted, others claimed it was guarded by spirits of writers past. But most had long since stopped wondering. The bookshop was simply there, as it had always been. Only the cat seemed to truly know. Juniper was not just any cat. His fur was striped in shades of cinnamon and amber, with a white patch beneath his chin that looked like a cravat. His eyes gleamed a deep green, calm yet alert, as though he were always listening to something others could not hear. He spent his days napping in the sun that fell across the dusty windowsill, his tail twitching in lazy rhythm. But once night wrapped its quiet arms around the town, Juniper stirred. He would leap gracefully from the counter to the shelves, padding along the rows as if inspecting each spine. Sometimes he paused to sniff at a leather-bound tome, or to nudge a crooked stack back into place. At midnight, he always sat atop the front counter, ears perked, tail curled neatly around his paws. The clock tower's chime drifted in through the walls, and with the 12th strike, something wondrous happened. The books breathed. It was not a sound exactly, but a feeling, the sense that the air itself shifted. The spines along the shelves gave the faintest shiver, and a soft whisper rose as though the words were stretching after a long day of silence. Juniper blinked slowly, content, for this was the moment he lived for, the secret heartbeat of the shop. Tonight, the glow began gently, a warm golden light seeping from between the shelves. Juniper's ears twitched. He hopped down, ready to explore, because each night was a little different. A different book stirred, a different dream unfolded. The bookshop was never still, not truly. It was alive, and Juniper was its quiet, patient guardian. The town slept deeply when the clock tower prepared to strike midnight. The cobblestones cooled under the weight of night air, the lanterns in the square flickered to their dimmest glow, and even the dogs that sometimes barked at shadows had curled into dreams. Only the sound of the river, steady and slow, lingered through the quiet. Inside Rowan's Booksellers, the silence was different. It was not empty but waiting. The shelves loomed in comfortable shadows. The dust motes hung suspended in the faint golden glow of a lantern left on the counter, and Juniper sat as still as a carved guardian. His ears turned toward the faint tick of the clock tower in the distance. 11, 11 and 1/4, 11 and 3/4. Then came the first clear chime. It rang through the valley, not harsh but resonant, like a bell that had known centuries of patience. Another followed, and another, each one slow, as though the world itself was pausing between them. Juniper's whiskers twitched with anticipation. His tail flicked once against the wood. By the 12th chime, the air in the bookshop shifted. The hush thickened, but with it came a ripple like a held breath released. One book slid faintly forward on its shelf. Another gave a little sigh as though the leather binding had grown tight from being still too long. The whispers began, not words at first, but the suggestion of them, like distant voices speaking behind a curtain. Juniper leapt lightly down from the counter. He padded between the rows, pausing here and there to listen. His paws made no sound on the wooden floor, but he moved with a sense of purpose, as though he already knew which book would be the first to stir. A leather-bound volume with gilded edges trembled on the middle shelf. The gold lettering on its spine shimmered faintly, spelling out a title that no ordinary passerby would ever have noticed: The Star Traveler's Journal. A faint glow slipped from between its pages, spilling onto the floor like moonlight. Juniper pressed his nose against the edge of the book, then gave a small, approving purr. The story was ready to breathe. The book fell open with a whisper of paper, though no hand had touched it. A breeze stirred from nowhere, carrying with it a scent of salt and wind, as though a distant shore had drifted into the shop. The glow from the pages rose in soft ribbons, curling upward toward the ceiling. Juniper sat back on his haunches, watching with calm, steady eyes. The words on the page lifted from the paper like tiny sparks, arranging themselves in the air. Soon, the shop was filled with faint outlines, the silhouette of a tall ship rocking gently, sails billowing as if stirred by an unseen wind. The floor seemed to tilt with the illusion of waves, though everything remained steady and safe. A voice whispered, not loud, not frightening, but gentle, like a story told to a drowsy child. Once, there was a traveler who followed the stars. She carried no map, for the sky itself was her compass. Wherever the stars gathered brightest, there she sailed. Juniper's ears swiveled toward the sound. He gave a low rumble of approval. The story had chosen itself well tonight. The air filled with a sound that wasn't quite real, the soft creak of wood, the distant gulls, the rhythmic hush of waves. But it was all wrapped in a kind of dreamlike veil. The shop was not transporting itself into another world. Rather, it was gently borrowing the sensations of one, just enough to cradle its listeners in wonder. The golden glow deepened, mingling with shades of deep blue, until the walls of the shop looked as if they had dissolved into twilight skies. A handful of stars twinkled in the rafters. Juniper stretched out on the floor, chin resting on his paws, and let his eyes half close. He would keep watch, of course, but this was also his favorite part, listening as the books told their stories, drifting into dreams alongside them. The voice continued, softer and softer, until it seemed no louder than the river outside. She sailed until her ship was as familiar to the stars as the moon is to the tide, and still, the journey was only beginning. The book side shut, but the glow lingered. The story had been released into the night, like a lullaby sent out across the valley. And Rowan's booksellers, quiet once more, seemed to smile in its sleep. The rain began as a whisper against the window panes, so soft that even the river outside barely noticed. Then it grew steadier, tapping out a rhythm on the glass, on the roof, on the cobblestones of the narrow street. The bookshop welcomed the sound. Rain always made the shelves seem to lean closer, as though they too enjoyed the company of its gentle percussion. Juniper sat in the window, tail flicking in slow time with the drops. The glow from the last story still lingered faintly in the air, but now the books were restless again. Rain had a way of coaxing them awake, pulling memories from their spines like water coaxing blossoms to open. A slim book near the counter slipped free of its neighbors with a soft shuffle. Its cover was pale blue, its title traced in silver that shimmered like starlight caught in frost, Songs of the Celestial Sky. The moment it opened, the shop grew brighter. Tiny pinpricks of light drifted upward, at first a few, then dozens, until the ceiling glittered with stars. Juniper leapt from the windowsill to the counter, his green eyes wide and glowing in the starlight. He followed one drifting spark with a slow paw, batting at it gently before letting it rise. The sparks were not heat or flame. They were cool, like snowflakes, dissolving into the air with the faintest scent of night-blooming jasmine. Then a soft voice began to hum. It wasn't human, nor entirely from the book. It was the bookshop itself, resonating with the story, like an old violin humming in tune with a distant melody. The hum was low, steady, a lullaby built from silence and rain. The pages turned themselves, each one spilling more light. The stars gathered above Juniper in spirals, forming constellations that stretched from one end of the rafters to the other. The cat tilted his head back, blinking in slow wonder. He had seen this story before, but it always felt new. Always gentle, always infinite. And then, as if answering some secret call, the rain slowed, softening into a hush. The stars dimmed one by one, returning quietly into the book's pages. Soon, only Juniper's steady purr filled the room, blending with the patter of rain's final notes. When the book closed, the glow faded to a golden hush, leaving behind only a faint shimmer on the shelves. The night deepened, and the shop seemed to sigh again, content. The rain had nearly stopped when the first small sound came, a creak of a loose cobblestone outside. Juniper's ears flicked. He lifted his head, blinking toward the window. Someone was there. Through the damp glass, faintly blurred by the mist, a figure stood, a child, no more than 7 or 8, wrapped in a cloak too large for their shoulders. The child pressed their hands against the window, peering inside with wide eyes. The glow from the shelves spilled out around them, painting their face in soft gold. Juniper tilted his head. He had seen townsfolk pass before, even late at night, but few lingered. This one did not move. The child's gaze darted across the shelves, then up to the rafters, as if they too could sense the lingering starlight still woven there. For a moment, the bookshop seemed to decide something. The lantern near the door flickered brighter, its flame dancing eagerly. A soft creak traveled through the wooden beams. The child leaned closer, lips parting in awe. Then the most curious thing happened. One of the books on the windowsill slid forward, nudging itself against the glass. Its cover read tales for wandering hearts. The child's eyes widened further. They lifted a hand as if to reach for it, then hesitated, pulling back. Outside, the rain had left puddles glistening along the street. The child's reflection wavered in them, 2 small eyes staring upward, half expecting the story to step outside on its own. Juniper hopped gracefully onto the sill, placing himself between the child and the glowing book. He stared out with his calm green gaze, tail wrapping neatly around his paws. The child gasped softly, then smiled. They whispered something, words too faint to pass through the glass, but Juniper's ears twitched as though he understood. For a long moment, the two of them simply looked at one another. The child outside in the cool night air, the cat inside with his lantern-lit world of stories. The bookshop hummed faintly around them, waiting, as though it too were listening. Then the clock tower in the distance gave a single chime, marking the 1/4 hour past midnight. The spell did not break exactly, but it folded itself gently, like a page being turned. The child stepped back, pulling the cloak tighter. One last glance at the window, one last smile, and then they vanished into the misty street. Juniper pressed his nose against the glass where they had stood. His whiskers twitched thoughtfully. The story had not ended. It had only begun. And somewhere deep in the shelves, a new book stirred. The book that stirred next was small and bound in cloth the color of twilight. It looked simple compared to the gilded journals and leather tomes that filled the higher shelves, but Juniper knew this one well. Its title, embroidered faintly in thread that caught the lantern glow, was Lullabies for the Wandering Soul. As it opened, the bookshop grew softer still. The golden light dimmed into a gentler glow, as if the lanterns themselves were swaying in rhythm. A hush spread from the pages like a ripple through calm water. Then came the sound. At first, only a single note, low and steady, like the beginning of a hum. Then another joined, and another, until the room was filled with a wordless melody. It was not loud. In fact, it barely seemed louder than the rain's memory against the window. But it carried weight, not heavy, not demanding, but the kind of weight that rests gently against a weary mind and coaxes it to drift. Juniper's eyes half closed. His tail flicked once, twice, then curled neatly around him as he settled beside the book. He had listened to this song countless times, yet each night it felt a little different. Tonight, the lullaby carried a sweetness tinged with longing, like the call of something remembered but not yet returned. From the pages rose small, glowing figures, shapes of lanterns, soft spheres of light that drifted lazily into the air. They bobbed as though floating on invisible currents, circling the shop in quiet procession. One brushed gently against Juniper's fur, dissolving into sparks that clung to his whiskers before fading. Then the voice came, not spoken, but felt, woven within the melody. Rest, little wanderer. Your journey is long, but tonight is yours. Rest. For a moment, Juniper thought of the child who had stood outside in the rain. He pictured the cloak too big for their shoulders, the wide eyes pressed to the glass. Perhaps the lullaby had reached them, even across the cobblestones. Perhaps they, too, had heard it as they walked home. The melody circled the shelves one last time, then folded itself back into silence. The lanterns of light flickered out like candles, one by one, until only the warm hush remained. The book closed softly, as if tucking itself to sleep. Juniper stretched, ears flicking toward the door. He had the distinct feeling the story was not meant only for him tonight. The silence after the lullaby was not empty, it was full, like a held breath. Juniper tilted his head. The books were not still, they were listening. It began with the lowest shelf, a faint vibration beneath the floorboards. Then the sound rose, not words but tones, a chorus of soft hums that blended together until the very walls seemed to sing. The shelves themselves were resonating, each spine contributing its own note, some high and trembling, some deep and steady. Juniper prowled slowly between the rows, tail raised, ears twitching at every subtle shift in tone. He rubbed his cheek against one shelf, and the hum deepened in response, as though the bookshop were purring back at him. Then came the faintest of sounds, footsteps. Not outside. Inside. Juniper froze, head turning toward the door. But the latch had not moved. The hinges had not creaked. Still, someone was there. He padded cautiously toward the counter. The lantern flickered, and for a heartbeat, he thought he saw the child again, standing just beyond the edge of the glow. But when the light steadied, the figure was gone. The humming grew stronger, wrapping itself around the room. It was as if the bookshop were protecting something or calling to someone. Juniper's fur prickled, though not with fear. This was no danger. It was recognition. A book near the highest shelf gave a sharp shiver. It slipped forward, caught itself, then hovered in the air as though waiting to be opened. Juniper crouched, ready to leap, but the book floated gently down to the counter, landing with a sigh. Its cover was bound in midnight blue, with no title, no name. The hum quieted, focusing into a single, steady tone that seemed to come from the book itself. Juniper sniffed at it cautiously, then sat back, ears alert. Whatever story waited inside was not ordinary. And somewhere, perhaps in a room not far away, a child turned in bed, dreaming of starlight and golden windows. That night, as the last hum faded into the shelves and the nameless midnight blue book rested quietly on the counter, Juniper curled into himself beside it. His tail wrapped tight around his body, his paws tucked beneath his chest. The lantern light swayed, casting long shadows that moved like the tide. Juniper did not sleep as other cats slept. When he drifted into slumber, he entered the rhythm of the bookshop itself. His dreams belonged partly to him and partly to the stories. This time, he found himself on a shoreline, sand cool beneath his paws. Above him stretched a sky so vast it seemed endless, stars blooming like flowers across the darkness. The sound of the waves was familiar, echoing faintly from the Star Traveler's journal that had opened earlier. He followed the shoreline until he saw the figure of a child, the same one who had pressed their hands to the glass outside the shop. In the dream, the child stood barefoot, their cloak trailing behind them, gazing at the sea as though it were a door. They did not seem startled to see him. When Juniper approached, the child bent down and whispered, "I knew you could follow." Their voice was soft, unafraid, threaded with wonder. Juniper purred, though in the dream it sounded almost like speech. The child reached out, fingers brushing the fur between his ears. Together they walked along the shoreline. With each step, words rose from the sand, sentences and fragments that glowed faintly before dissolving back into the waves. Juniper paused to paw at one, sending it scattering like driftwood. The child laughed, a sound that reminded him of the shop's shelves humming. As dawn began to touch the horizon in faint colors, the dream grew lighter, more fragile. The sea faded, the words sank back into silence, and the child's form blurred like mist. Their last words floated to him as the vision dissolved. "I'll come back. I promise." Juniper opened his eyes in the shop. The lanterns still glowed, though faint, and the midnight blue book sat unopened beside him. His whiskers twitched thoughtfully. Dreams in this place were not accidents. Something was coming. By the time the first faint gray light touched the edges of the shutters, the bookshop had grown still again. The glow had retreated into the shelves, the magic folded itself neatly into the spines, and the air returned to its familiar hush. Only Juniper remained awake, perched on the counter, watching as the world outside began to stir. The baker lit his ovens. The faint scent of bread reached even through the closed door. The milk cart rattled down the lane, its driver whistling softly. A woman with a basket of herbs hurried past, her shoes tapping lightly on the cobblestones. None of them gave the bookshop more than a passing glance. By daylight, Rowan's Booksellers was invisible again, a quiet building, its windows dusty, its sign faded. Juniper hopped down and padded toward the back corner where a small dish waited. Someone no one knew who always filled it with fresh water and a few crumbs of bread or cheese. The townsfolk assumed one of the neighbors cared for him, but no one ever admitted it. Juniper lapped the water slowly, his ears twitching toward the shelves as though still listening for their hidden song. The midnight blue book remained on the counter, its presence subtle yet undeniable. It did not vanish with daylight as other restless volumes often did. It stayed, patient, as though waiting to be chosen. Juniper leapt back up beside it, curling into the sunlight now streaming weakly through the shutters. His purr rumbled low and steady. The shop was sleeping again, but the story was not over. The rhythm of the town would return tonight. The clock would strike 12, and the shelves would breathe once more. For now, though, there was peace. The bookshop rested, warm and timeless, while the day moved on around it. And so ended the first awakening of Rowan's Booksellers, a single night in the life of a shop that held more dreams than the town could ever imagine. Night fell softly over the town. The lamps flickered in the square, their amber glow pooling in gentle circles on the cobblestones. The baker's windows were dark, the scent of bread long gone, and the clock tower's chimes echoed faintly, slowed by distance. Inside Rowan's Booksellers, the lantern on the counter glowed golden. Juniper padded along the shelves, tail high, ears flicking. The shelves were quiet, the books still, but a low hum seemed to ripple through the floorboards, like the heartbeat of the shop itself. And then, a small sound at the door made him pause, a faint tap, tap, tap. Juniper's green eyes narrowed. The door was locked, yet someone was there. A soft shuffle, then the tiny voice of the child from the rain-soaked night a few days ago. "Hello," they whispered, almost shyly. Juniper padded to the door, tail curling in a question mark. The child pressed a hand to the glass, cheeks flushed with cold from the evening air. Their cloak hung in soft folds, and their boots were damp, leaving faint prints on the cobblestones. Juniper mewed softly. The child laughed quietly, a gentle sound that seemed to brush against the lantern light like a soft breeze. I just wanted to see," they murmured, voice almost lost in the hush of the shop. "I wanted to see if it was real." Juniper tilted his head. The books leaned slightly as though listening. The shop waited with quiet patience. Then, as if encouraged by Juniper's purr, the child pressed the door handle. It turned easily, as though the shop itself had unlocked it. The door opened with a soft creak, and the warm glow of the interior brushed against the child's face. Juniper trotted ahead, guiding them inside, his tail sweeping like a flag of welcome. The child stepped in slowly, eyes wide with wonder. Every shelf seemed alive, dust motes floating in the lamplight like tiny stars. The air smelled of vanilla, old paper, and something like soft rain. The hum of the shop was soothing, like a gentle lullaby. The child took a careful step forward, and Juniper padded alongside, tail swishing with gentle rhythm. The shelves towered above them, filled with books of every color, every shape, some humming faintly as if they remembered their own stories. "Wow," the child breathed, reaching a hand toward a soft green book on a low shelf. The moment their fingers brushed the cover, a whisper rose from the pages. Not words exactly, but a gentle, melodic vibration, like wind through reeds. The book tilted slightly toward them, almost inviting their touch. Juniper sat nearby, watching. Occasionally, he pawed gently at the floor, and one of the lower shelves gave a soft sigh, as if pleased by his attention. The child wandered slowly, touching a few more books. Each seemed to respond differently. A leather-bound volume shimmered faintly, sending tiny specks of light spiraling upward. A cloth-bound story hummed a note so soft it could barely be heard, and the child leaned close, smiling. Do they talk? They whispered, more to themselves than to Juniper. Juniper tilted his head, as though answering, only if you listen. His green eyes glimmered in the lantern light. The child nodded, stepping onto a small rug that cushioned the floor. From the highest shelves above, the faintest glimmer of starlight appeared, a shimmer that wasn't there before. The shop seemed to sigh in contentment, the golden glow stretching across the room like a warm blanket. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping softly against the windows. Inside, the shop was filled with whispers of stories, soft hums, and the steady presence of Juniper. The child sank onto the rug, cross-legged, and looked around, eyes wide with wonder. And the bookshop waited patiently, a quiet host for this tiny visitor, as the night settled in around them like a deep, gentle sigh. The child sat cross-legged on the soft rug, eyes wandering across the shelves. Juniper padded beside them, tail sweeping back and forth like a pendulum of calm. The lantern on the counter glowed softly, spilling golden light that mixed with the faint shimmer of the books. Slowly, the child reached for a leather-bound journal, gilded letters glinting in the lamplight, the Star Traveler's Journal. They opened it carefully, and a warm breeze seemed to drift from the pages. The shop smelled suddenly of salt and distant tides, and the child shivered with delight. Juniper's ears flicked toward the rising hum. Words lifted from the pages, curling into the air like ribbons of silver. A faint outline of a tall ship appeared in the middle of the room, sails swaying gently as if caught by the unseen wind. The floor beneath seemed to rock softly, though the child knew they were still on the rug. The voice began, soft and musical. Long ago, a traveler set sail across the endless night, guided only by the stars. Each constellation was a compass, each ripple of the tide a promise. The child leaned closer, eyes wide. "It's real," they whispered, voice trembling. "It's really real." Juniper rubbed against their leg, purring, as the words wrapped around the room like a blanket. The stars in the journal floated higher, filling the ceiling with faint twinkles. Outside, the rain tapped gently against the windows, but inside, the night felt infinite, cozy, and warm. The child closed their eyes for a moment, letting the story wash over them. When they opened them again, a tiny glowing bird, one of the story's creatures, perched on the edge of the journal, its light soft and reassuring. The child wandered slowly among the shelves, Juniper padding quietly ahead, guiding them. Every book they touched hummed softly, each in its own tone. Some whispered words of encouragement, some offered gentle snippets of adventures they had never read before. "Do they notice me?" the child asked almost shyly. "Do the books know I'm here?" Juniper purred, brushing against the child's hand as if to answer. The shop itself seemed to respond. The shelves leaned slightly closer, dust motes twinkling in the lamplight, and a faint vibration rose from the floorboards. It was a sound without words, yet it carried a sense of welcome, of calm. The child stopped in front of a soft green book, smaller than the others. As they opened it, golden light spilled into their hands, forming gentle shapes in the air, lanterns drifting upward, glowing faintly like captured fireflies. The hum of the shelves harmonized with the light, filling the shop with a gentle lullaby. Juniper sat back on his haunches, tail curled neatly, and watched. The child's eyes were wide, reflecting the glow of floating lanterns. They whispered, "It's like the stories are alive." They're really alive. Outside, the night deepened, rain softened, and the world beyond the shop was quiet. Inside, Rowan's bookseller seemed to sigh in contentment, its shelves leaning in as if listening, its lanterns glowing steadily, and its guardian cat purring in time with the magic. The child sank onto the rug again, surrounded by soft light and gentle hums, and for a moment, the shop felt like the safest, coziest place in the universe. The child, still perched on the rug, let their eyes wander higher than they had before. The shop seemed taller at night, shelves stretching like quiet, patient trees. Dust motes floated lazily in the lamplight, drifting through the soft hum of the bookshop. Juniper patted ahead, tail swishing like a slow metronome, as though marking a rhythm only he could hear. Something glimmered near the top of a tall shelf. The child tilted their head, blinking. There, almost hidden between larger tomes, were books bound in silver thread. Their spines shimmered faintly, catching the golden lantern glow and scattering it in tiny sparks across the nearby shelves. Juniper leapt gracefully onto a lower shelf, then onto the counter, his green eyes fixed on the silver threads. The child craned upward, a finger reaching out, and felt the shimmer. The thread was cool to the touch, delicate yet firm, like woven starlight. "They're beautiful," the child whispered. Do they have stories too?" Juniper rubbed against their hand, purring, and a single page floated gently from one of the silver-bound books. It hovered in the air, its edges curling slightly, golden letters shimmering across the surface. The page whispered softly, almost inaudibly. Every story waits for the listener who sees not only with their eyes, but with their heart. The child's breath caught. It knows me." The book tilted forward slightly, inviting them to open it fully. When they did, the shop filled with the scent of cool night air and soft pine, as though a forest had drifted inside. Shapes of gentle creatures appeared in the air, tiny foxes with fur like silver mist, birds with wings made of light, and leaves that twirled slowly as if caught in an endless breeze. Juniper twined between the child's legs, brushing against them. "See," the cat seemed to say with a soft purr. "It's all waiting for you." The child sank to the rug, eyes wide, letting the silver-threaded story swirl around them. For the first time, they felt as if they were not simply reading the shop, they were a part of it. Juniper patted ahead, tail flicking, and led the child toward a low shelf tucked into a quiet corner of the shop. There, 3 books rested slightly apart from the others. Their covers were different shades of muted green, and their spines formed a subtle pattern that seemed almost like a puzzle. The child knelt down, touching each one in turn. I think they're supposed to go in a certain order," they whispered. "But how do I know which?" Juniper mewed softly, circling them once, then brushing against the middle book. The child smiled, interpreting it as encouragement. They shuffled the books, trying different orders. Each time the books were slightly misaligned, a soft hum began, then faded into gentle disappointment. When the order felt right, the shop seemed to exhale. The 3 books glowed softly, and their pages fluttered open in unison. Golden letters drifted into the air, forming shapes that danced like fireflies before settling into patterns on the ceiling. A soft voice emerged, warm and calm. "Patience, little one. Every story has its rhythm. Every puzzle has its turn." The child leaned back, letting the gentle glow wash over their face. Their fingers traced the letters floating in the air, and the words seemed to respond, shifting slightly so that they could follow the lines. Juniper sat beside them, ears twitching, eyes calm and watchful. Outside, the night was quiet, the rain gone but replaced by a cool breeze. Inside, the shop glimmered, humming with gentle satisfaction. The child whispered, more to themselves than to anyone else. I think I'm beginning to understand." The books folded themselves back into silence, the glow fading to a golden shimmer. Juniper twitched his tail, as though pleased with the night's work. The child leaned back, eyes heavy but bright, and let the magic of the shop lull them towards sleep. The child had curled up on the rug again, Juniper sitting close by, tail wrapped neatly around his paws. The silver-threaded books had returned to their shelf, but the glow lingered faintly in the air, shimmering like dust caught in sunlight. The shop felt almost alive, listening, breathing, waiting. "I wonder, do the stories ever sleep?" the child whispered. Their voice was soft, as if afraid to wake the shelves. Juniper tilted his head, ears flicking, and the child imagined the cat answering with a purr that meant, only until the right listener arrives. They reached toward another book, a small velvet-bound one tucked on a middle shelf. Its cover was a deep, calm green, and as their fingers brushed it, the shop seemed to exhale. Pages fluttered open, and the words rose in the air, not just letters, but shapes. Tiny islands drifted across the floor, a gentle river meandering between them, and miniature trees swayed in a breeze that the child could feel on their cheeks. "Juniper, look," they whispered. A tiny boat formed in the river, and little paper figures waved from its deck, their faces smiling warmly. The child's heart lifted. It was as though the story had noticed them personally, crafting this moment just for them. Juniper padded closer, brushing against the child's arm. The boat floated toward them, bobbing softly, carrying a tiny lantern that glowed golden. The child reached out, and the lantern rose gently into their hands, warm but not hot, humming softly. The voice of the story began, low and soothing. Every journey begins with a single step. Every wanderer is guided, even when they cannot see the path. Outside, the night was quiet, almost reverent. The rain from earlier had stopped, leaving puddles that reflected the flickering lamplight. But inside, the shop carried its own weather, a gentle breeze, the scent of distant forests, the hum of unseen rivers. The child closed their eyes for a moment, letting the story fill them completely. When they opened them, the boat had drifted into a small pool of golden light that lingered near the rug. The paper figures waved again before fading, leaving only the warm glow. Juniper purred, eyes half closed, his body vibrating with contentment. The child whispered softly, "I think I could stay here forever." And in the quiet hum of Rowan's booksellers, the shop seemed to nod in agreement. Juniper led the child to a corner of the shop they had not yet explored. It was a narrow alcove tucked behind a tall shelf of thick, dusty tomes. The lantern light stretched across the space, illuminating a small window that looked out onto the cobblestone street. Outside, the first pale hints of dawn brushed the horizon, though the shop itself remained in a comforting golden glow. The alcove held a single low shelf, crammed with books bound in soft shades of blue and silver. Their spines shimmered faintly, humming in a way that felt almost like speech. The child knelt in front of them, hands hovering over the books. Do they talk to each other?" they asked, voice trembling with wonder. Juniper purred and tapped one paw gently against the shelf. The books responded. A soft cascade of pages fluttered open, and the words rose, weaving into delicate shapes, curving ribbons of light that danced like fireflies. The words themselves whispered in low tones, stories overlapping, harmonizing, forming something like conversation. The child leaned back on their heels, eyes wide, and realized they could hear tiny voices. One book murmured about distant mountains, another whispered of quiet rivers and starry skies, and yet another hummed the tale of a fox that wandered for moons without ever losing its way. The hums intertwined, gentle and comforting, like a lullaby sung by the world itself. Juniper nudged the child gently, urging them closer. The child leaned forward, fingertips brushing a glowing page. The page shifted under their touch, forming letters that spelled softly, "Welcome, little one. We have been waiting." The child's lips parted in a small, odd smile. They know me," they whispered, eyes shining. The shelves seemed to lean closer, the light pulsing gently as though affirming the words. Outside, a bird called faintly from the rooftops, its song barely audible over the quiet hum of the shop. Inside, the golden glow wrapped around the child and Juniper like a warm quilt. The air smelled of vanilla, soft rain, and old paper, a scent that promised safety and endless stories. The child sank to the rug, letting the glowing words swirl above them, listening as the shelves continued their quiet conversation. Juniper curled up beside them, purring steadily, and for a moment, the world beyond the bookshop ceased to exist. There was only the warmth, the stories, and the comforting presence of the shop itself, a place to rest, to dream, and to belong. Juniper led the child to the middle of the shop, where a wide, low rug stretched across the floor. The lantern on the counter glowed softly, and dust motes drifted lazily through the golden light. The shelves leaned slightly inward, as if curious about what was about to happen. The child spotted a thin, leather-bound book tucked behind a stack of taller tomes. Its cover shimmered with hints of silver and blue, like moonlight on water. When they opened it, a soft sigh filled the shop, carrying the scent of cool rivers and night air. From the pages, a tiny stream of glowing water flowed outward, winding across the rug like a ribbon of light. Juniper crouched nearby, ears twitching, eyes gleaming. The child leaned forward, letting their fingers hover just above the stream. "Is it real?" they whispered. Juniper gave a small, approving purr. The river of light responded to the child's touch, rippling gently as if recognizing their presence. Tiny creatures emerged along the glowing banks. Luminous fish, small glowing birds, and delicate flowers that bloomed and closed in slow rhythm. The child reached out and a fish glided toward their hand, its glow soft and warm. They laughed quietly, careful not to disturb the gentle hum of the shop. The lantern swayed slightly, and the dust motes danced in the glow. The voice of the story began, low and soothing. Every journey begins with curiosity. Every river carries secrets only those who listen may find. The child leaned back, letting the river of light curl around their legs, flowing softly under the rug as if following invisible channels. Juniper padded beside them, tail swishing gently. Outside, the night was silent and still. Inside, the shop hummed with gentle life, the river of light and the glowing creatures moving in perfect harmony. Time seemed to slow. The child closed their eyes for a moment, breathing in the warm, paper-scented air. When they opened them, the river had formed a small glowing circle, as though inviting them to explore further. And in that circle, the shop waited patiently, a place of stories, light, and safety. The river of light shimmered and curled, forming tiny bridges over itself, delicate and inviting. The child leaned forward, tracing one with a fingertip, and felt the glow pulse softly beneath their touch. Juniper circled them, tail flicking, and nudged the child toward the glowing path. A soft voice, barely above a whisper, drifted from the pages. "Step lightly, little one. The story will show you wonders if you walk with care." The child smiled, taking a small step onto the edge of the glowing ribbon. It felt warm and alive beneath their foot, gentle enough to walk on without fear. The fish swam alongside them, luminous birds hovered above, and the tiny flowers bent as if bowing in greeting. Juniper followed, weaving between the child's legs. His purr thrummed in rhythm with the river of light, grounding the child in calm and safety. The shelves leaned slightly toward them, their spines glimmering faintly in encouragement. The child paused mid-step, looking around. It's like the stories are real," they murmured, awe in every word. I can touch them, feel them." The river responded, rippling softly beneath their foot. Light shimmered in the air above them, forming shapes of distant forests, starry skies, and quiet villages. The child's eyes widened, heart lifting with a gentle, unhurried excitement. Juniper sat back on his haunches, tail curling neatly, and gave a soft mew. The shop seemed to hum with approval, the lantern light warm and golden around them. Outside, the world was quiet, but inside, the shop held infinite possibilities, floating rivers of light, stories that waited patiently, and a safe, comforting presence that would not let the child fall. The child sighed, leaning back onto the rug. I'm ready to see what happens next," they whispered. And the shop, patient and glowing, prepared to reveal its next gentle secret.
Juniper led the child through a quiet path between two towering shelves. The air smelled faintly of old pine, vanilla, and the gentle musk of paper, an aroma that always seemed to settle the mind. Dust motes floated lazily in the lantern light, caught in the soft golden haze that wrapped the shop. The child followed, eyes wide, ears tuned to every tiny creak of the floorboards. "Where are we going?" they whispered. Juniper gave a soft mew, weaving between their legs, tail high and alert. The cat's movements were confident, almost knowing. This way, the silent purse seemed to say. They reached a shelf that appeared ordinary at first glance. But Juniper brushed against it, tail flicking, and a faint click echoed through the quiet. The shelf swung inward, revealing a narrow corridor lined with books bound in silver thread. The light inside was cooler here, pale and soft, like moonlight spilling over snow. The child gasped softly. "It's hidden," they murmured. "I've never seen anything like this." Juniper stepped forward, motioning them to follow. The corridor's air felt almost alive, humming faintly with the stories that waited there. Each silver-threaded book shimmered faintly, leaning slightly toward the child, as though aware of their presence. "This must be the secret part of the shop," the child whispered, eyes tracing the intricate threads that bound the books. Some threads gleamed like starlight, others like fine liquid silver. They reached out and gently touched one of the books. The cover felt cool and smooth, humming faintly beneath their fingertips. As they opened it, a soft wind stirred, carrying scents of distant forests, sparkling rivers, and quiet, moonlit mountains. Shapes began to lift from the pages. Tiny, glowing foxes trotted across the floor, lanterns floated in spirals above, and faint ribbons of starlight arched along the corridor ceiling. Juniper sat on the rug at the child's feet, purring, his gaze calm and watchful. The child leaned closer to the open book, whispering, "It's like it knows I'm here. Like it's alive." The silver threads vibrated gently, a low, soothing hum filling the corridor. The child felt a warmth settle in their chest, the kind of comfort that comes from being exactly where you're meant to be. Outside, the night was still, but inside, the hidden section glimmered softly, alive with patient magic. The child sank onto the soft rug in the hidden corridor, Juniper curling up beside them, tail wrapped around his paws. The silver-threaded book hovered lightly open, its pages glowing faintly with a pale, serene light. A soft voice emerged from the pages, gentle as a lullaby. "Welcome, little one. Every story has been waiting for you." The child leaned forward, fingertips brushing the air above the glowing words. The letters lifted, forming shapes in the golden light. Tiny trees swayed gently, rivers shimmered faintly as if reflecting starlight, and distant mountains rose in miniature perfection. Juniper purred in low approval, tail flicking in rhythm with the gentle hum of the corridor. The child leaned back against the shelf, eyes wide. It's like a whole world," they whispered, voice soft and awed. "And I'm inside it." The pages rustled as if in reply. Shapes of creatures emerged. A small fox with silver fur padded past the child's knees, looking up with eyes that shone faintly like moonlight. A pair of luminous birds circled above, trailing sparks of soft golden light. The child reached out, letting a finger hover near one, and the creature twirled in response. The voice continued, steady and calm. "Every heart has a story. Every journey begins with a gentle step, and every listener is part of the tale they enter." Outside, the streets were quiet, the first blush of dawn still hours away. Inside, the hidden corridor shimmered softly, glowing with the warmth of unseen fires and whispered stories. The child let their hand rest lightly on the book, feeling the pulse of its magic. Juniper leaned his head against the child's knee, purring steadily. The silver-threaded book sighed softly, almost like it was exhaling, and the child felt the same kind of contentment that comes from being wrapped in a warm blanket on a quiet night. I think I could stay here forever," the child whispered. The cat's eyes gleamed knowingly, the shelves leaned ever so slightly closer, and the corridor hummed in gentle agreement. The secret section was patient, safe, and alive, and it had chosen the child as its first real visitor. As the child leaned back on the rug, Juniper stretched languidly beside them, tail curling around his paws. The soft hum of the silver-threaded corridor filled the air, a gentle, reassuring rhythm. Yet among the glowing shelves, one book seemed different, almost shy, tucked quietly in the corner. Its cover was dark green, faded at the edges, with no shimmering threads or hints of glow. It looked ordinary, almost as if it had been forgotten. The child noticed it when Juniper padded toward it, sniffing the spine carefully before giving a small approving meow. "You want me to try this one?" the child whispered. They reached for the book cautiously, brushing dust from the cover. The leather was soft under their fingers, worn smooth from centuries of careful handling, yet untouched by anyone in a long while. As soon as the book opened, a soft sigh escaped it, like the air itself had been holding its breath. The pages glowed faintly, warm and golden, but the light was softer than the silver-threaded books. Shapes began to rise from the pages, a gentle meadow, dew sparkling on tiny blades of grass, and a path winding lazily through the trees. Juniper crouched low, ears forward, his green eyes reflecting the glow. The child's lips parted in awe. "It's quiet. But I think it's alive." A voice, low and calm, drifted from the pages. Some stories wait patiently for the one who notices them. Some stories are gentle, slow, meant for quiet hearts. The child leaned closer, brushing their fingers over the glowing illustrations. Small creatures emerged, soft, round-eyed rabbits with fur like spun silk, birds with wings that glimmered faintly with dawn light. Each moved gently, their steps measured and calm, never rushing, never startling. Juniper purred softly, curling his tail around the child's knee. The shop itself seemed to lean in, shelves humming a gentle accompaniment. The child realized that some stories didn't roar with magic, they whispered. They invited, soothed, and waited, like this one. I like it," the child whispered, eyes wide. "It feels safe." And in the hush of the corridor, surrounded by the gentle hum of the shelves and Juniper's steady purr, it truly was. The child sank onto the rug, letting the forgotten book rest open on their lap. The pages glimmered faintly, each line of text forming delicate, dancing shapes, trees that swayed, streams that rippled softly, and small animals that moved in slow, careful harmony. The air smelled faintly of damp moss and warm sunlight, a comforting scent that seemed to wrap the child in a gentle embrace. Juniper nudged the book gently with his head, purring. The child laughed softly, leaning forward to touch the glowing illustrations. You like this one too, don't you?" they whispered. The cat responded with a slow blink and a quiet rumble, as if confirming that some stories were meant to be savored slowly. The voice from the pages spoke again, soft as wind through leaves. "Step lightly, little one. Walk the paths with care, and the story will show you wonders." The child traced a finger along the glowing path on the page, and the shapes began to lift into the air. Tiny streams of light arched gently above, forming miniature bridges and gentle waves. A soft breeze brushed their cheeks, carrying the faint scent of flowers and fresh earth. Juniper's tail swished in time with the floating light, grounding the child in calm and warmth. Outside, the streets were quiet, blanketed by the soft hush of night. Inside, the hidden corridor glimmered with golden light. The child leaned back, letting the gentle magic of the story wash over them. Every step along the glowing paths felt safe, every creature moved with care, and the shelves hummed softly in accompaniment. I think this one's my favorite," the child whispered, eyes heavy but bright. Juniper purred louder, head resting on their knee, and the corridor seemed to sigh with quiet approval. The forgotten book had waited patiently for them, and now it had found its listener. The child's eyes began to droop, the gentle glow of the pages and the hum of the shop wrapping them in warmth. Juniper shifted closer, tail curling protectively, and the corridor, with its quiet stories and soft light, seemed to lull both of them into a calm, dreaming peace. The child blinked sleepily, still curled on the rug with the forgotten book open in their lap. Juniper lay beside them, tail sweeping slowly, purring steadily like a metronome of calm. The corridor's silver-threaded shelves seemed to lean slightly closer, golden light pooling in soft, inviting circles. A faint glimmer caught the child's eye from a small stack of books on the far corner. Unlike the silver-threaded volumes or the quiet green book, this stack pulsed lightly, as if breathing. One by one, the books tilted forward, opening their pages just slightly, revealing tiny illustrations that twinkled and shimmered. "Juniper, look," the child whispered, leaning closer. "They're moving." Juniper's ears twitched, and he padded closer, tail high. The child reached out cautiously. As their fingertips brushed a page, a tiny paper boat lifted off and drifted gently into the air, carried on an invisible current of light. The child laughed softly, careful not to disturb the quiet hum of the shop. The voice of the story spoke, low and melodic. Every corner of this shop holds a secret. Some wait for a patient hand, some for a curious heart. Step lightly, and you may find the wonders hidden within. The child leaned back onto the rug, eyes wide as more shapes emerged, miniature glowing foxes, soft floating lanterns, and tiny trees that swayed as if caught in a gentle breeze. Juniper circled them once, brushing against their legs, tail curling protectively. "This is amazing," the child whispered, voice trembling with awe. "It feels like the stories know me, like they're alive." The books continued to shimmer and float, dancing slowly in the air. The child reached for another, and golden words rose gently, forming shapes that twirled like ribbons in a slow, lazy dance. Outside, the night remained quiet, but inside, the shop pulsed with gentle, unhurried magic. The child leaned against Juniper, letting the soft glow and the calm hum of the corridor lull them into a relaxed state. The shop waited patiently, every shelf and every story breathing in quiet harmony, and the child felt as if they had discovered a secret world all their own. Juniper padded ahead, tail flicking, guiding the child to the far end of the hidden corridor. There, a low shelf held a book with a deep blue cover, faintly embossed with silver threads that formed the delicate outline of a bridge. The child reached for it, brushing the cover gently, and a soft sigh of air seemed to drift from the pages. The book opened slowly, revealing a river of golden light winding across the floor, stretching toward a distant shimmer at the far corner of the corridor. Tiny lanterns floated above the river, their glow soft and steady, forming a bridge of light. The child's eyes widened. "Juniper, it's a bridge," they whispered, voice barely audible. I can walk on it." Juniper meowed softly and stepped forward, tail curling in encouragement. The child lifted a foot, placing it gently on the first lantern. Warmth pulsed beneath their touch, soft and reassuring. Slowly, carefully, they began to walk along the bridge, Juniper close behind, tail swishing in rhythm with the floating lights. The river beneath shimmered, reflecting distant forests, starry skies, and quiet mountains. Tiny creatures, foxes, birds, and glowing rabbits, darted along the banks, moving slowly and deliberately, never startling the child. The soft voice of the story drifted upward. "Every step is part of the journey. Every journey begins in stillness, with a gentle heart." The child reached the middle of the bridge and paused, leaning slightly over the glowing river. The lanterns twinkled softly, as if nodding, and the foxes waved their small tails in greeting. Juniper brushed against their legs, purring steadily, anchoring them in calm and safety. A gentle breeze stirred the corridor, carrying the faint scent of pine and soft rain. The child smiled, breath slow and even. "It's perfect," they whispered. "I can feel the story, everywhere." The bridge of lanterns pulsed softly beneath their feet, guiding them forward in a slow, safe rhythm. The shelves hummed in gentle accompaniment, and the child felt a deep, unhurried peace. Outside, the world waited, but inside Rowan's booksellers, time moved in quiet circles, and the child could wander, explore, and rest, all at once. As the child reached the far end of the bridge of lanterns, a faint rustle drew their attention. Juniper's ears twitched, tail swishing slowly in anticipation. From the shadows of the hidden corridor emerged a small silver fox. Its fur shimmered like moonlight on calm water, and its eyes held a gentle, knowing glow. The child froze, both amazed and hesitant. "Is it real?" they whispered. The fox took a careful step forward, paw silent on the rug. Juniper crouched, purring softly, tail flicking in slow, reassuring rhythm. The child held out a hand, and the fox sniffed it delicately before brushing its head against their fingers. A warmth spread from the touch, gentle and calming. You're part of the story, aren't you?" the child asked softly. The fox's tail flicked in acknowledgement, and a soft voice rose from the silver-threaded book that had formed the bridge. "Every story holds a guardian. Every journey has a companion. You have found yours." the child's heart lifted. They knelt slowly, and the fox curled around their knees, purring softly, a tiny pulse of warmth radiating from its fur. Juniper leaned against the child's other side, forming a protective triangle of comfort. The lanterns above the bridge twinkled gently, casting soft light across the corridor. Outside, the night was quiet, yet inside, the hidden section pulsed with calm energy. The fox lifted its head, eyes meeting the child's. "Come with me," the creature seemed to say, and with a soft hop, it padded toward another glowing book, silver fur catching the light. The child rose carefully, following the fox, Juniper close behind. Every step along the bridge of lanterns felt safe, measured, and gentle. The shelves hummed softly in accompaniment, as though approving this first tentative interaction with the story's magic. Are we going to a new story?" the child whispered. The fox flicked its tail, glimmering faintly, and the pages of the book lifted, curling gently in the air. Words swirled into shapes, soft meadows, rivers, forests, and mountains waiting patiently. The child felt a thrill of wonder but also a profound sense of calm. Rowan's booksellers had opened a door to a world both alive and soothing, and for the first time, the child felt they truly belonged. The fox led the child and Juniper to a soft patch of golden light that had formed above a low rug near the silver-threaded shelves. The light shimmered, casting patterns of dancing leaves and rippling water across the walls. The child knelt, letting the fox curl into their lap. Juniper circled them once, settling back down beside the rug, tail wrapping protectively around his paws. A gentle breeze stirred from the pages of the glowing book, carrying the scent of fresh grass and warm sunlight. Tiny flowers bloomed along the edges of the golden light, opening and closing in slow rhythm. The fox nudged the child's hand, inviting them to touch one. The petals felt soft, like velvet, and a warmth pulsed beneath the fingertips. The child's voice was a soft whisper, "It's perfect. It feels like everything I've ever wanted a story to be." From the book, the voice of the story drifted, low and melodic. "Every story begins with a gentle step. Every journey unfolds with patience. Walk slowly, little one, and the world will reveal itself in its own time." The child leaned back, letting the fox rest its head on their knees. Lanterns above twinkled gently, and the silver-threaded shelves hummed in soft harmony. The fox's fur glimmered faintly in the golden light, and Juniper's purr thrummed in response, steady and comforting. Tiny glowing birds emerged from the pages, fluttering in lazy circles above the child, their light soft and warm. Streams of golden energy traced delicate patterns across the floor, forming paths and bridges that seemed to stretch endlessly, yet entirely safe. The child's eyes grew heavy. I think I could stay here forever," they whispered. The fox flicked its tail softly in agreement, and Juniper shifted closer, purring louder. The meadow of light shimmered gently around them, wrapping the child in warmth, calm, and quiet wonder. And Rowan's booksellers, patient and alive, hummed in quiet satisfaction. The shop had welcomed its first visitor fully into the magic, and the night stretched on, slow and unhurried, carrying them gently toward dreams. The child rested in the golden glow of the meadow, Juniper curled beside them, tail brushing their leg, and the silver fox nestled softly in their lap. The lanterns above twinkled like stars, casting slow, shifting shadows across the shelves. The corridor hummed quietly, alive but patient, as if holding its breath for the next gentle step. The fox lifted its head, eyes glimmering, and padded toward a soft stream of golden light that meandered across the rug like a ribbon of calm. The child followed slowly, fingers trailing over the glowing path. Juniper padded at their side, tail curling rhythmically in reassurance. It's like walking inside a story," the child whispered, voice soft and awed. "And it's calm. Everything's so calm." The golden river rippled beneath their fingers as they stepped lightly along its edge. Tiny paper boats drifted lazily in the current, glowing fish swam beside them, and small blossoms lifted gently from the banks, turning slowly in the soft light. The fox paused, looking back with a faint nudge, inviting the child to continue. A soft voice drifted from the nearby book, warm and melodic. "Every journey is made of gentle steps. Each moment matters. walk slowly, and the story will reveal itself. The child smiled, breathing slowly, feeling the steady warmth of Juniper's purr and the fox's presence. Each step along the glowing stream was careful and unhurried. The shelves leaned slightly closer, the light shimmering faintly in response, and the child felt an extraordinary sense of safety and wonder. The lanterns above swayed lightly, as though stirred by a breeze that existed only in the corridor. Golden petals drifted across the floor, brushing their hands and cheeks. The child whispered softly, I think the story likes me." Juniper purred louder, tail flicking in rhythm, and the fox curled closer in agreement. Step by step, the child walked along the glowing river, discovering that each ripple, each floating petal, and each tiny creature had its own gentle rhythm. The world of the story was alive but soft, patient, and kind, a place where magic could unfold slowly, and hearts could rest. The golden river widened into a soft pool, its surface shimmering like liquid sunlight. Lanterns floated above, forming a gentle arch, the first of what seemed to be a bridge of light. The silver fox padded ahead, tail flicking in encouragement, and the child rose carefully, stepping toward the glowing bridge. Juniper followed, tail curling protectively around the child's feet. This is a bridge," the child whispered, voice trembling slightly with awe. I can walk on it?" The fox stopped at the beginning of the arch and looked back, eyes glimmering softly, as if to say, yes, and you will be safe. The child placed a foot gently on the first lantern, feeling warmth and light pulse beneath them. Step by step, they began to cross, each lantern glowing brighter as they moved forward. Juniper brushed against their legs, steadying them, and the fox trotted lightly ahead, showing the path. The shelves leaned slightly, humming softly, and golden words floated lazily above the bridge. Every first step is a beginning. Every careful move brings wonder. Walk gently, and the story will hold you. The child moved slowly, tracing patterns in the air with their hands as glowing shapes responded. Tiny luminous birds circled above, foxes darted along the banks, and soft blossoms arched in greeting. Each movement was gentle, deliberate, and calm, and the child felt a deep, soothing rhythm settle into their chest. Halfway across the bridge, the child paused, leaning slightly over the golden river. The lantern swayed softly in response, casting dancing light across the corridor walls. The fox sat nearby, tail flicking softly, and Juniper purred steadily at their side. It feels like the story is holding me," the child whispered. "Like I'm supposed to be here." The soft golden light pulsed gently, the corridor hummed in quiet approval, and the child continued across the bridge, every step slow, deliberate, and filled with wonder. Outside, the night was still. Inside Rowan's booksellers, magic moved softly, patiently, wrapping them in warmth, calm, and a gentle sense of belonging. The child stepped off the bridge, golden lanterns twinkling softly beneath their feet, and onto a glowing patch of floor that shimmered like dew in early morning. Juniper settled beside them, tail curling around his paws, while the silver fox padded gently ahead, ears twitching. The air here felt warmer, scented faintly with wildflowers, pine, and soft sunlight. Tiny motes of light floated lazily above, drifting like fireflies caught in slow, deliberate currents. The shelves around them leaned slightly inward, casting a gentle, protective glow over the glowing patch. The child knelt down, letting their hands hover above the light. Each fingertip traced shapes of miniature forests, sparkling streams, and tiny hills, all formed from the soft luminescence of the corridor. The fox padded past, brushing against their knees, and Juniper purred steadily, a calm, grounding rhythm beneath the child's hands. "It's like a secret garden," the child whispered. "A garden made of stories." The golden light shimmered and swirled, forming paths that wound gently among miniature trees and soft, glowing flowers. A tiny stream sparkled across the center of the glade, its waters pulsing slowly, carrying miniature boats that floated lazily past. The child leaned closer, fascinated, letting the soft glow reflect in their wide, bright eyes. A gentle voice rose from the pages of the book that had created the bridge. "Every garden of light begins with a careful step. Every creature, every bloom, every shimmer is here for those who wander slowly and gently. The child smiled, breathing deeply, feeling a sense of calm settle over them like a warm blanket. Juniper nudged their hand with his head, and the fox curled against their knees. Tiny glowing birds circled above, tracing lazy loops in the golden haze, and the child realized that in this glade, every story, every movement, and every soft light existed for the joy of noticing them. The child wandered slowly along the soft paths of the glade, fingers brushing gently against glowing petals that opened and closed with a slow, deliberate rhythm. Each flower hummed a faint note, a soft, melodic sound that blended with the gentle rustle of the trees and the hum of the silver-threaded shelves. Juniper padded ahead, tail swishing slowly, and the silver fox followed the child's steps, glimmering faintly in the golden light. Tiny creatures darted along the soft paths, luminous rabbits hopped between petals, birds with soft, glowing wings circled the streams, and firefly-like lights drifted lazily above, like tiny floating lanterns. The child knelt to watch a small rabbit pause near a patch of glowing moss. "Hello there," they whispered softly. The rabbit twitched its ears, blinked, and hopped closer, brushing gently against the child's hand. A warmth spread from the touch, soothing and steady, and the child's chest felt calm, heavy with gentle contentment. From the book, a soft voice drifted through the glade. "Every touch, every look, every quiet step is a part of the story. Wander slowly, little one, and you will see wonders hidden in plain sight." The child sat on the soft floor, cross-legged, letting the glowing flowers drift past their fingertips. Juniper curled against their side, purring softly, while the fox rested its head on the child's lap. Tiny petals swirled in gentle arcs around them, carried by invisible currents of warmth and light. I understand," the child whispered, eyes half closed. This is how stories can be gentle. How they can be soft, and alive, and safe." The corridor hummed in quiet agreement, the golden light shimmering softly around the child. Outside, the world slept, but inside Rowan's booksellers, time moved slowly, deliberately, like a lullaby. The glade glowed, the fox purred, and Juniper vibrated with steady warmth, wrapping the child in a cocoon of calm, wonder, and quiet magic. The child shifted slightly on the glowing floor of the glade, Juniper nestled beside them, tail flicking lazily. The silver fox lifted its head, ears attentive, and padded gently toward a cluster of soft, glowing flowers. Above, tiny luminous birds circled, their wings casting trails of light that danced like ribbons in the warm air. The child reached out a hand, fingertips brushing the soft glow of a bird's wing. The creature paused mid-air, hovering gently as though sensing the child's touch. A warmth spread through the child's fingers, soft and soothing, like a gentle breeze over sunlit grass. They feel alive," the child whispered, eyes wide. "And they're so calm." Juniper purred, tail swishing rhythmically, as if to reassure them that it was safe. The silver fox nudged the child's knee, prompting them to follow along a winding path of golden light. Each step made the birds flutter in lazy circles above, forming a delicate canopy of soft, warm glow. From the book, the voice of the story rose softly. "Every creature has a rhythm, every movement a gentle purpose. Walk slowly, little one, and you will understand the harmony of the world." The child smiled, letting their hands float above the birds, tracing lazy arcs in the air. The creatures shifted gently in response, never startling, always calm. Lanterns swayed softly above, casting a golden shimmer across the shelves, and the silver-threaded threads hummed faintly, as if singing in harmony. The child leaned back on the glowing floor, watching the birds drift in gentle patterns. I think they like me," they whispered. Juniper pressed his head to their side, purring louder, and the fox curled closer, tail flicking in contentment. The glade seemed to breathe along with them, wrapping them in a warm, soft cocoon of quiet wonder. The child rose slowly, feeling a pull toward the center of the glade where the golden light shimmered more brightly. Tiny creatures emerged from the glowing flowers, hopping gently along the soft paths, their movements slow and unhurried. The luminous birds swooped down, tracing arcs above the child's head, ribbons of light curling around them in gentle patterns. Juniper padded beside them, tail curling protectively, while the silver fox led the way, hopping lightly between patches of glow. The child reached out, letting the creatures brush against their fingers, each contact sending a tiny pulse of warmth and comfort through their chest. A soft voice drifted from the book, low and melodic. Every step is a dance. Every touch a conversation. Move slowly, little one, and the story will show you its secrets. The child began to move in time with the creatures, swaying gently as the birds circled, ribbons of light following their motions. Tiny glowing foxes padded around their feet, hopping softly, and delicate flowers arched toward them in arcs. Every movement felt safe, deliberate, and slow, a gentle dance with the story itself. Juniper twined between the child's legs, purring steadily, and the silver fox brushed against their side, tail flicking in quiet encouragement. The golden light shimmered and pulsed in time with the child's slow, careful steps, forming tiny bridges of illumination across the soft floor. The child's eyes grew heavy with wonder and contentment. It's like the story is dancing with me, they whispered. The fox flicked its tail softly, the birds twirled lazily above, and Juniper purred a steady rhythm beneath their hand. The glade shimmered softly, every creature, every petal, every light moving in harmony. Outside, the world slept. Inside Rowan's booksellers, the night stretched unhurried, wrapping the child in calm, warmth, and quiet, magical wonder. The child sat for a long moment in the glowing glade, watching tiny luminous birds drift lazily above and soft foxes pad gently along the golden paths. Juniper rested close by, his tail curled protectively around their knees, while the silver fox stretched, nose twitching, seemingly listening for something. A faint shimmer at the edge of the glade caught the child's eye. Between two low shelves, partially hidden by floating golden petals, a narrow pathway glowed faintly. It was smaller than the rest of the corridor, almost like a secret tucked between the bookshelves, but it pulsed softly, calling with a gentle light. "Juniper, do you see that?" the child whispered. The cat lifted his head and padded forward, tail swishing slowly. The fox trotted ahead, pausing at the entrance of the hidden path, eyes glimmering in quiet encouragement. The child took a careful step forward. As they did, the soft golden light expanded slightly, revealing miniature bridges over tiny glowing streams and glowing moss that felt warm beneath their fingers. The air smelled faintly of pine, rain-soaked earth, and a hint of honey, comforting and grounding. From the hidden path, a soft voice drifted. Every corner of the story has its own quiet magic. Every step along the path is a gentle discovery. Move slowly, little one, and the story will unfold. The child followed the fox, Juniper close behind, stepping lightly along the glowing moss. Each footfall caused tiny lights to ripple, illuminating the path ahead. Golden petals floated past lazily, and miniature glowing creatures peeked from behind rocks and plants, observing without fear. "Look at this," the child whispered softly, kneeling to touch a tiny stream. Water shimmered under their fingers, flowing in slow, deliberate currents. A small boat of paper drifted past, carrying a tiny lantern that glowed warmly. The child's chest filled with a calm wonder, their pulse matching the gentle rhythm of the hidden path. They continued slowly, exploring the twists and turns of the narrow corridor, noticing small details, leaves that shimmered with tiny stars, flowers that opened as they passed, and distant whispers of unseen stories. Juniper purred steadily, the fox trotted ahead, and the child realized they were completely immersed in the soft, unhurried magic of the world. At the end of the hidden path, the child stepped into a small grove bathed in soft silver light. The glowing lanterns from the corridor above dimmed here, replaced by gentle beams of starlight that seemed to rise from the floor itself. Tiny streams meandered between glowing moss and miniature trees, reflecting the soft light in lazy, sparkling arcs. The silver fox padded ahead, stopping to nuzzle a glowing flower. Juniper circled the child's legs once before sitting calmly, tail curled tightly, eyes half closed in contentment. The child knelt, letting their fingers trace the delicate patterns of glowing vines and softly arching trees. Each movement seemed to ripple gently through the grove, and the faint scent of night-blooming flowers wrapped around them in a warm embrace. From the book that had created the bridge, a soft, melodic voice drifted. Some stories are meant to be discovered slowly, gently. Some groves grow only for the patient, and the quiet of night nurtures them. The child smiled, breath slow and even, as small glowing creatures began to emerge. Tiny foxes with silver fur padded through the grass, luminous birds perched on low branches, and delicate glowing butterflies flitted lazily, their wings trailing faint ribbons of light. Every movement was calm and unhurried, perfectly synchronized with the soft hum of the grove. "I think, this place is magical in a way that makes you feel safe," the child whispered, stroking the fox's head. The fox purred faintly, tail flicking in approval. Juniper purred louder, leaning his head against the child's knee. The child explored slowly, noticing every detail: moss that felt warm beneath their fingers, streams that rippled lazily, and flowers that glowed brighter when touched. The grove seemed alive but gentle, a space created for quiet discovery and comfort. As they settled onto a patch of glowing moss, the child whispered softly, "I think I could stay here forever." The silver fox curled beside them, Juniper shifted closer, and the soft starlight wrapped around all three in a cocoon of warmth, calm, and quiet wonder. Outside, the world slept. Inside Rowan's booksellers, the night stretched unhurried, filled with the gentle magic of stories waiting patiently to be discovered. The child nestled into the soft glow of the starlight grove, Juniper pressed closely at their side, purring steadily, and the silver fox curled in their lap, tail brushing gently against their hands. Above, tiny luminous birds circled lazily, leaving delicate trails of light, while miniature glowing foxes peeked shyly from behind low moss-covered rocks. The silver fox in their lap lifted its head, eyes twinkling, and a soft, melodic chime seemed to float from the pages of the book. Suddenly, tiny silver fox cubs appeared, stepping lightly across the glowing moss. Each cub's fur shimmered faintly in the starlight, their eyes full of gentle curiosity. The child's eyes widened. "Oh, Juniper, look. They're so tiny and soft." Juniper gave a soft approving mew, circling the child's legs slowly, while the mother fox nudged the cubs forward, guiding them toward the child. Hesitantly, the child reached out a hand. The smallest cub approached, sniffing delicately before brushing its head against their fingers. A warmth spread through the child's palm, soothing and calming in a way that made their chest feel light. They trust me," the child whispered, eyes shining. The mother fox curled protectively around the cubs, tail flicking slowly, eyes soft and watchful. The tiny cubs began to explore, hopping over the glowing moss, sniffing tiny flowers, and occasionally brushing against the child's lap. Each movement was slow, careful, perfectly in tune with the soft rhythm of the grove. From the book, a voice drifted in a gentle whisper. "Every guardian has its kin. Every story nurtures life for those who enter with patience and care. Walk slowly, little one, and you will see wonders unfold." The child leaned back onto the soft moss, letting the cubs crawl over their lap. Juniper pressed his head into their side, purring louder, and the silver fox mother rested her head gently on the child's knee. The grove hummed softly with the combined warmth of glowing light, gentle creatures, and quiet magic. I think they like me," the child whispered. "I think they feel safe with me." The mother fox flicked her tail slowly in agreement, and the cubs curled against the child, nuzzling and blinking sleepily. The starlight grove pulsed faintly around them, wrapping everything in warmth, calm, and gentle wonder. The child shifted slightly, letting the cubs settle in their lap while the mother fox and Juniper flanked them. Tiny glowing birds hovered overhead, weaving slow circles through the starlit branches, leaving soft trails of light behind. A gentle wind carried faint scents of wildflowers, moss, and sun-warmed earth, mingling with the subtle hum of the corridor and the faint pulse of the silver-threaded book. The child closed their eyes, breathing slowly, as the cubs kneaded softly against their lap. A soft voice drifted through the grove. "Every light has its rhythm, every creature its song. Listen, little one, and you will hear the lullaby of the world." The luminous birds began to chirp softly, their tones low and melodic, blending with the steady purr of Juniper and the gentle rumble of the silver fox. The child's chest rose and fell in time with the music, every sound, movement, and glow wrapping them in a cocoon of comfort. Small petals drifted lazily through the air, brushing against the child's hands and face. Tiny ribbons of light floated along the streams, tracing gentle arcs that sparkled faintly with every ripple. The cubs yawned sleepily, curling closer, their warmth mingling with the soft glow beneath the child. "It's like a song," the child whispered. A song made of light, and warmth, and gentle things." The mother fox flicked her tail gently, nudging a cub closer to the child, and Juniper's purr deepened. The starlight grove pulsed softly, in perfect harmony with every creature and every gentle sound. Golden light shimmered across the miniature streams, casting patterns like floating stars, while the trees bent slightly as though bowing in soft acknowledgement. The child leaned back fully onto the glowing moss, eyelids heavy, letting the soft hum, the warm light, and the gentle rhythm of the grove settle them into calm. I think I could sleep here forever," they whispered. The cubs snuggled into their lap, Juniper's tail brushed against their arm, and the mother fox rested her head beside them. And as the soft starlight shimmered above, the grove hummed a lullaby, patient, gentle, and unhurried, a perfect cradle for dreams to follow. Rowan's booksellers held its quiet magic, keeping the night slow, warm, and deeply comforting. The child settled on the soft glowing moss, the silver fox and its cubs nestled warmly in their lap, and Juniper pressed close, purring steadily. Tiny luminous birds circled above, weaving slow arcs of light, while petals from glowing flowers drifted lazily through the air. The starlight grove seemed alive with quiet magic, yet everything moved deliberately, gently, and without rush. From a low curve in the grove, the child noticed a small stream winding lazily through patches of glowing moss and delicate flowers. Its water shimmered like liquid moonlight, flowing softly, and reflecting tiny ribbons of starlight. The child leaned forward, letting their fingers hover above it. The stream rippled gently in response, carrying small glowing leaves and floating lanterns. Juniper padded closer, tail curling, while the silver fox lifted her head to watch. The child's voice was soft and reverent. It feels like it's whispering." A faint melodic voice drifted from the stream, almost like a lullaby. "Every water has a song, every ripple a secret. Listen closely, little one, and the story will speak." The child traced a fingertip along the flowing water. Tiny glowing fish appeared, swimming slowly beneath their hand, leaving trails of soft golden light. Miniature creatures peeked from mossy banks, luminous rabbits paused mid-step, birds fluttered gently in the air, and fox cubs watched intently, ears twitching in quiet curiosity. "It's so calm," the child whispered, letting their hands skim over the gentle current. The warmth of the foxes and the steady hum of Juniper's purr merged with the soft song of the stream, and a sense of profound peace settled over them. Each ripple, each glimmer of light, felt deliberate and slow, perfectly attuned to the quiet rhythm of the grove. The child leaned back, watching the stream wind lazily toward a distant patch of silver light. I think the story wants me to follow it," they murmured. The fox nudged their knee, tail flicking softly, while Juniper shifted closer, as if to guide them forward. Step by step, the child rose and began to follow the whispering stream, every movement gentle, slow, and perfectly in tune with the soft magic surrounding them. Following the whispering stream, the child stepped carefully along patches of glowing moss. Lanterns of soft golden light floated just above the water, forming miniature bridges over the shallow pools. The silver fox led the way, fox cubs trailing, ears alert, while Juniper padded closely, tail flicking protectively. The grove deepened as they moved, glowing trees forming a quiet canopy overhead. The soft wind carried a mix of wildflowers, moss, and the faint scent of night-blooming jasmine. Tiny glowing butterflies flitted along the stream's edge, weaving lazy arcs above miniature hills and moss-covered stones. The child leaned down, fingers brushing gently against a soft blossom, which glimmered brighter at their touch. A soft melodic voice rose from the book that had shaped the bridge and grove. "Every heart has a hidden place. Every story has a quiet center. Walk slowly, little one, and you will discover it." The child's eyes widened as they reached a clearing. The whispering stream opened into a small pool of silver light. Floating on the water were tiny glowing lanterns, reflecting stars that seemed to hang in the air above. The fox cubs tiptoed carefully along the banks, sniffing the delicate flowers, while the mother fox dipped her paw into the soft, shimmering water. Juniper sat close, tail wrapped around the child's legs, purring steadily. I think this is the heart of the grove," the child whispered, kneeling to trace the water's edge. The pool rippled gently beneath their fingers, reflecting their face softly in the glow. Tiny creatures emerged from every corner, glowing foxes, luminous birds, and delicate rabbits, all moving slowly, deliberately, harmonizing with the quiet rhythm of the heart of the grove. The child lay back on the soft moss, eyes heavy with calm wonder, the cubs curling against their lap, Juniper resting beside them, and the silver fox nuzzling their hand. Above, tiny starlight birds circled in lazy arcs, leaving trails of soft luminescence, while the lanterns floated silently on the gentle pool. "It's perfect," the child whispered. Everything is safe here." And in that gentle moment, the grove seemed to sigh softly, wrapping the child in warmth, calm, and quiet magic, the very essence of Rowan's booksellers at its most serene. The child remained by the small silver-lit pool, fox cubs curled softly in their lap, and Juniper stretched lazily beside them, tail swishing in steady rhythm. The mother fox rested her head gently on the child's knee, eyes half closed, watching the tiny glowing creatures that moved with deliberate calm. Above the pool, floating lanterns shimmered softly, drifting in gentle arcs. Their light reflected off the water, creating dancing patterns that glimmered across the soft moss and low branches. The child leaned forward, fingertips hovering over a lantern. A warm pulse traveled through their hand as the lantern shifted gently, floating closer, as if inviting interaction. "Juniper, look," the child whispered. They want me to touch them." The cat purred, tail curling around the child's leg. The fox nudged gently against their hand, encouraging exploration. Carefully, the child lifted a lantern from the water. Its glow felt like soft sunlight pressed against their palm, warming from the inside. They held it gently, noticing the tiny ribbons of light inside slowly swirling, almost like a heartbeat. From the book, a soft voice drifted in melodic cadence. "Every lantern holds a memory, every glow a quiet story. Hold it gently, little one, and you will understand the heart of the light." The child placed the lantern on the soft moss, watching the tiny light ripple across the floor. Golden reflections danced in the mother fox's fur and shimmered on the silver-threaded bookshelves. The fox cubs padded curiously around the lanterns, sniffing and brushing their tails against the soft glow. The child reached for another, lifting it carefully and letting it hover in their palms. "It feels alive," the child whispered. "Like it knows I'm here. Like it trusts me." Juniper purred louder, brushing his head against their hand, and the mother fox flicked her tail in soft agreement. Above, luminous birds circled slowly, leaving trails of light that mingled with the lantern glow, forming delicate patterns that seemed almost musical. The child leaned back on the glowing moss, holding a lantern gently to their chest. The pool rippled softly, tiny floating lights bobbing in rhythm with their heartbeat. Everything moved slowly, deliberately, in perfect harmony. I think I could stay here forever," they murmured, eyes half closed. The grove seemed to sigh softly in response, embracing them in calm, warmth, and quiet magic. The child knelt by the pool, Juniper curled at their side, tail brushing softly against their legs, while the silver fox and cubs explored the mossy banks. Above, the lanterns floated in slow arcs, casting warm golden reflections that shimmered across every surface. Tiny ripples traveled across the pool as the child dipped a fingertip into the silver-lit water, sending miniature waves through the floating lights. "It's like they're talking to me," the child whispered, tracing the paths of the ripples. Each ripple seemed to respond with a gentle shimmer, twisting around fox cubs and swirling across the moss in arcs of golden light. The luminous birds circled overhead, weaving ribbons of soft illumination, while the fox mother watched patiently, tail flicking gently. The voice of the story rose softly from the silver-threaded book. "Every light has a whisper. Every ripple has a song. Listen closely, little one, and you will feel the rhythm of the world." The child held a lantern over the pool, tilting it slightly. Golden trails of light stretched from the lantern into the water, merging with the silver reflections. The fox cubs hopped lightly along the moss, brushing against the edges of the glowing streams, while Juniper pressed his head against the child's arm, purring steadily. I can feel it," the child whispered. "The story, the lights, it's like they're alive with gentle magic." The child leaned back on the moss, letting the lantern float gently beside them. Tiny glowing petals drifted lazily from the branches above, brushing against their hands and cheeks. The pool shimmered, golden and silver reflections intertwining, as the luminous birds circled in lazy arcs. The fox cubs curled beside the child, tiny noses twitching sleepily, and the mother fox rested her head softly on their knees. A calm warmth settled over the child, mingling with Juniper's purr and the steady pulse of the grove. The whispering lanterns shimmered softly, each tiny glow echoing a quiet lullaby. The child's eyes grew heavy, and as they leaned back fully onto the soft moss, the starlight grove seemed to wrap them in a cocoon of warmth, calm, and gentle, magical wonder, the perfect cradle for dreams yet to come. The child lay quietly on the glowing moss, Juniper curled at their side, tail brushing gently, while the silver fox and her cubs dozed nearby. Above, luminous birds floated lazily, casting slow arcs of light, and petals drifted softly through the warm, starlit air. The grove hummed with calm, deliberate magic. As the child's gaze wandered, they noticed a faint shimmer along one side of the grove. Between two softly glowing trees, a tiny doorway had appeared, outlined in delicate silver light. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, small and subtle but undeniably inviting. "Juniper, look," the child whispered softly. "A doorway, it wasn't here before." The cat lifted his head and patted closer, tail curling, eyes bright with curiosity. The silver fox nudged the child's hand, encouraging exploration. Heart fluttering gently with a mixture of awe and caution, the child rose and stepped toward the doorway. The soft golden moss beneath their feet seemed to guide them, and the air smelled faintly of rain-washed pine and honeyed sunlight. From the book, a low melodic voice drifted. "Every secret waits patiently for those who wander gently. Every door opens only for the careful and the kind-hearted." The child knelt, brushing a hand across the doorway's silver outline. A gentle warmth pulsed through their fingers, and they felt a soft vibration, like a quiet invitation. Juniper twined around their legs, purring softly, while the fox nudged their shoulder with a small encouraging nuzzle. I think it wants me to go inside," the child whispered. With careful steps, they pushed the doorway open. A soft, glowing light spilled out, revealing a narrow chamber bathed in pale silver and gold. The air was warm, scented faintly with night-blooming flowers, and tiny motes of glowing light drifted slowly, lazily, like floating stars. The child stepped inside, Juniper following, and the fox padded quietly at their side. Everything moved in soft, unhurried rhythms, the floating lights swirled gently, small streams reflected the glow, and faint whispers of invisible stories seemed to rise from the walls themselves. "It's beautiful," the child whispered, eyes wide, breath slow and even. "It feels like a secret place, just for me." The doorway closed softly behind them, leaving them wrapped entirely in calm, warmth, and gentle, magical wonder. Inside the chamber, the child noticed shelves lining the walls, each filled with tiny books that glimmered faintly in soft silver and gold. Unlike the books in the main corridor, these seemed almost alive, each cover pulsing gently, humming faintly, like a heartbeat. Tiny creatures peered curiously from between the shelves, miniature foxes, glowing birds, and delicate rabbits, all moving slowly, cautiously, and with deliberate calm. The child knelt to pick up one of the tiny books. As they opened it, soft golden letters floated up, forming delicate shapes, a miniature meadow, sparkling streams, and tiny trees swaying in a gentle breeze. The light shimmered and pulsed softly, and the child felt a quiet warmth spreading through their chest. Juniper pressed his head against the child's side, purring steadily, while the silver fox and cubs curled around their knees, tails brushing softly. The child whispered softly, "It's like every story here is alive, and waiting for someone to notice." A soft voice rose from the pages. "Some stories are small. Some are gentle. They wait quietly for patient hearts to read them. Move slowly, little one, and you will see the quiet magic. The child began to explore the chamber, opening books carefully and watching tiny creatures emerge from the pages. Miniature glowing foxes padded around their hands, delicate birds circled overhead, and luminous rabbits hopped along the edges of softly glowing moss. Each movement was slow, deliberate, and perfectly safe. The chamber seemed to expand with every story the child touched. Tiny streams and glowing hills appeared across the floor, illuminated by faint silver and gold light. The air smelled faintly of honey, warm earth, and soft sunlight, wrapping the child in comfort. I could stay here forever, the child whispered, settling on a soft patch of glowing moss. Juniper pressed close, the silver fox rested her head on the child's lap, and the cubs nestled gently against them. Tiny glowing lights drifted lazily around, swirling in slow, harmonious patterns. And in that quiet chamber, surrounded by living stories, the child felt the full embrace of Rowan's booksellers, warmth, calm, and gentle, unhurried magic, perfect for letting the mind drift softly toward dreams. The child lay curled on the soft, glowing moss of the chamber, Juniper pressed at their side, tail brushing gently, while the silver fox and her cubs nestled warmly around their knees. Tiny books pulsed softly along the shelves, shimmering with quiet life, each waiting patiently to be opened. Curious, the child reached for one of the smaller volumes, its cover etched in delicate silver and gold threads. As they opened it, golden letters rose and swirled, forming a miniature meadow directly on the soft moss. Tiny flowers bloomed slowly, petals unfolding with soft, deliberate motion. A tiny stream glimmered as it wound between small hills, reflecting faint silver light from the floating moats above. The child leaned forward, careful not to disturb the miniature creatures that appeared, tiny glowing foxes padding among the flowers, luminous birds perching on the tiny hills, and delicate rabbits hopping softly across the shimmering grass. Juniper twined his tail protectively around the child's arm, purring steadily, while the silver fox watched calmly. "Look at this, Juniper, it's alive," the child whispered, fingertips hovering above a tiny fox cub that padded toward them. The cub sniffed gently, brushing its tiny head against the child's finger. A soft warmth spread through the child's hand, and a calm, comforting pulse seemed to flow from the miniature meadow itself. From the book, a gentle voice rose. "Every small world has its rhythm. Every tiny creature moves with purpose and care. Watch closely, little one, and you will feel its quiet magic." The child smiled, watching the fox cub hop over the soft grass, the luminous birds flutter in lazy circles, and the tiny rabbits nuzzle each other gently. Each movement was deliberate, calm, and perfectly safe. Golden ribbons of light traced slow arcs above the meadow, connecting streams, flowers, and creatures in a quiet dance of harmony. They settled more comfortably on the moss, leaning back and letting their hands hover over the tiny meadow. "It feels like I'm part of it," the child whispered. The fox mother flicked her tail gently, nudging a cub closer to the child, and Juniper purred louder. Every ripple of light, every gentle movement of the miniature creatures, seemed to lull the child into a deeper, peaceful calm. Encouraged by the small meadow, the child opened another book, this one heavier and etched with swirling silver threads that glimmered faintly in the chamber's soft light. As the pages unfolded, a tiny river appeared, winding gracefully across the glowing moss floor. Its waters shimmered like liquid silver, moving slowly, carrying tiny paper boats with softly glowing lanterns. The silver fox led the way, cubs following hesitantly, while Juniper padded close to the child, tail curling protectively. The child knelt beside the river, tracing a fingertip along the soft current. The water rippled gently at their touch, sending delicate trails of light spiraling lazily along the moss. Tiny glowing fish swam beneath the surface, shimmering with golden flecks. "It's so calm," the child whispered. "Like it's breathing slowly." The soft melodic voice of the book drifted upward. "Every river flows in its own rhythm. Every ripple carries a story. Move gently, little one, and you will discover the quiet wonders within." The child smiled, placing a tiny glowing lantern onto the river. It floated gracefully, joining others that bobbed lazily down the current. Small fox cubs watched the lantern drift past, ears twitching, while luminous birds circled above, leaving soft trails of light in gentle arcs. Juniper pressed his head against the child's arm, purring steadily, and the silver fox rested her head lightly on their knee. The child leaned back on the glowing moss, watching the river wind through the miniature world. Tiny glowing flowers bent lazily over the water, petals brushing against the surface without disturbing the gentle flow. The cubs snuggled closer, tail brushing across the child's arm, and the mother fox flicked her tail softly, eyes bright and watchful. "It's like the river is alive," the child whispered, breathing slowly and evenly. "And it wants me to feel safe and calm." The river shimmered in quiet agreement, each ripple reflecting golden and silver light across the chamber walls. Every movement, every soft glow, every gentle creature carried a sense of warmth, calm, and peaceful magic. The child closed their eyes, leaning fully into the soft moss, the fox cubs curled against their lap, Juniper vibrating softly at their side, and the silver fox resting her head gently upon them. The tiny river wound lazily across the glowing moss, the lanterns bobbed gently, and the chamber hummed quietly, a lullaby of light, warmth, and unhurried magic, perfect for drifting into dreams. The child rested on the soft moss, Juniper curled beside them, tail brushing gently, while the silver fox and her cubs nuzzled around their knees. The chamber hummed quietly, golden and silver lights pulsing softly along the walls and shelves. Each miniature story seemed alive, glowing with patient magic. As the child's gaze wandered, they noticed a faint shimmer in the center of the chamber. Tiny ribbons of silver light arched gently above a small, glowing tree that had appeared overnight, or perhaps it had always been there, waiting patiently. Its bark shimmered softly, and its leaves glowed with delicate pulses of gold and silver. The child's eyes widened. "Juniper, look," they whispered. "A tree, right here, in the middle." The cat twined around their legs, purring, while the fox nudged the child's hand toward the tree, tail flicking softly. The tree seemed to respond, its glowing leaves trembling slightly as if welcoming them. A faint fragrance of honeyed sunlight and night-blooming flowers wafted through the chamber, calming the child's breath. From the book, a soft melodic voice drifted. "Every heart has a tree. Every story grows from patience and care. Approach slowly, little one, and you will feel its gentle magic." The child knelt beside the tree, brushing their fingers across a glowing leaf. A warm pulse spread through their hand, traveling into their chest and settling into a calm, even rhythm. Tiny creatures emerged from beneath its roots, miniature foxes, luminous birds, and soft rabbits, all moving slowly and deliberately. Juniper pressed his head gently against the child's arm, purring in steady cadence. It feels alive," the child whispered. "Like it knows I'm here, and that it's safe." The silver fox nudged a cub toward the tree, and the little fox patted around the base, brushing its head against the child's hand. Golden light shimmered across the chamber, and tiny floating motes of illumination drifted lazily from branch to branch. The child leaned back on the glowing moss, watching the tree sway gently as though breathing. I think it's happy to see me," they whispered. Juniper purred louder, the cubs curled closer, and the mother fox rested her head lightly on the child's lap. The chamber hummed quietly, wrapping everything in warmth, calm, and gentle magic, perfect for drifting slowly into dreams. The child shifted closer to the heart tree, resting their hands in their lap as glowing leaves shimmered softly above. Each leaf seemed to hum gently, a soft vibration that mingled with the purr of Juniper and the steady warmth of the silver fox. Tiny birds circled slowly overhead, leaving delicate trails of light, while the fox cubs nuzzled against the child's lap, blinking sleepily. The soft melodic voice of the book rose. "Every leaf has a lullaby. Every branch carries a story. Listen closely, little one, and you will feel the rhythm of calm, of safety, and of gentle wonder." The child reached up slowly, letting their fingertips brush a glowing leaf. A warmth spread from the leaf to their hand, and a quiet melody seemed to drift softly into their ears. The tree pulsed faintly in response, shimmering with gold and silver light that danced across the chamber walls. Juniper twined between the child's legs, tail curling, purring steadily, while the fox nudged a cub closer for warmth. Tiny foxes, glowing birds, and delicate rabbits moved slowly through the chamber, tracing lazy, deliberate paths around the child, each step a quiet celebration of harmony and calm. It's like a song, the child whispered. A song of light, and warmth, and gentle things. They closed their eyes, letting the leaves brush lightly against their fingers, feeling the soft rhythm of the heart tree pulse through them. The chamber seemed to breathe along with the child. Golden and silver lights shimmered across the tiny streams and miniature meadows, rippling softly through the moss, while the floating lanterns bobbed lazily on tiny rivers. Every creature, every soft glow, and every gentle sound created a symphony of calm, unhurried magic. I could stay here forever, the child murmured. The cubs curled fully into their lap, Juniper pressed his head against their side, and the silver fox rested her head gently on their knees. The leaves of the heart tree shimmered softly above, each pulsing with warmth, calm, and gentle lullabies. The chamber wrapped them all in a cocoon of magic, perfect for letting the mind drift slowly toward dreams. The child lay on the soft glowing moss beneath the heart tree, Juniper curled tightly against their side, tail brushing rhythmically. The silver fox rested her head gently on their lap, cubs nestled closely, warm and drowsy. Above, the leaves shimmered softly, pulsing gold and silver light in slow, unhurried rhythms. The floating lanterns drifted lazily across tiny miniature meadows and softly flowing rivers, reflecting in the child's half-closed eyes. The luminous birds circled above, leaving trails of soft, delicate light. The soft humming of the chamber, the gentle purring of Juniper, and the quiet heartbeat of the heart tree wrapped the child in a warm, unbroken cocoon of calm. The child whispered softly, almost to themselves. It's perfect here. Everything is safe, everything is gentle. From the silver-threaded book, a voice drifted faintly, melodic and warm. Every heart finds its resting place. Every story holds gentle magic. Close your eyes, little one, and let the quiet of the world embrace you. The child allowed their hands to rest lightly on the glowing moss, feeling the soft pulse of the miniature rivers and the gentle warmth of the tiny foxes. Golden and silver ribbons of light danced slowly across the heart tree's leaves, casting comforting patterns across the chamber walls. The cubs nuzzled closer, and Juniper's steady purr seemed to harmonize with the subtle pulse of the grove. I think I could stay here forever, the child murmured, eyes fluttering closed. The soft hum of the chamber, the gentle glow of the lanterns, and the heartbeat of the heart tree seemed to settle into a quiet, unhurried rhythm. Every creature, every floating light, every whisper of magic existed in perfect harmony, encouraging the child to breathe slowly, deeply, and with complete calm. The silver fox shifted slightly, curling around the child's legs, tail brushing softly, while the cubs nestled fully into the child's lap. Above, tiny glowing birds traced lazy arcs, ribbons of light merging with the shimmering leaves. The chamber hummed softly, a lullaby of warmth, light, and unhurried magic, preparing the child for the deepest, calmest rest. The child's eyelids grew heavy beneath the soft shimmer of the heart tree. Juniper purred steadily at their side, the silver fox rested her head gently on their lap, and the cubs curled against them, warm and content. The chamber's golden and silver light pulsed softly, slow and deliberate, like the steady rhythm of a lullaby. Tiny rivers of light glimmered across the moss, carrying floating lanterns lazily along their gentle currents. Miniature foxes, luminous birds, and delicate rabbits moved slowly and quietly, each step measured and calm, harmonizing with the child's own deepening breaths. Golden petals drifted lazily from the heart tree above, brushing gently across their hands and cheeks. From the book, a soft melodic voice whispered, "Every story rests for those who wander slowly. Every light welcomes the patient heart. Close your eyes, little one, and dream gently within the story's embrace." The child curled fully into the soft moss, feeling the warmth of Juniper and the fox family, the gentle glow of the heart tree above, and the soft pulse of magic flowing from every corner of the chamber. The miniature meadows, rivers, and floating lanterns seemed to bend softly toward them, embracing them in quiet, unhurried wonder. "It's like the whole story is holding me," the child murmured. "Keeping me safe, and calm, and warm." Their voice grew softer with every word, breath slow, chest rising and falling in harmony with the gentle rhythms of the chamber. The soft lights shimmered across the child's closed eyelids, every leaf, stream, and creature moving in slow, deliberate arcs. The cubs nestled fully into their lap, Juniper's purr vibrating steadily, and the silver fox rested her head lightly. Tiny glowing birds circled overhead, leaving ribbons of gold and silver that merged with the soft glow of the heart tree. And as the child drifted completely into sleep, the chamber hummed softly, wrapping them in warmth, light, and gentle, unhurried magic. Outside, the world slept. Inside Rowan's booksellers, every story rested, every creature breathed softly, and the night held its calm, waiting patiently for the morning. The child dreamed quietly, embraced by the gentle heart of the story, a perfect, cozy, unbroken world of warmth, safety, and soft magic.